All right, back with our last type of symbol. Now, if you think about where we've gone, we started out with things in nature. We then added humans and their behaviors. And mostly their behaviors is where we started with humans. Then we went to things that people had built. So we're gradually adding all of the things that are around you in real life. Then we got to slightly more detail about people. We started dealing with social locations. We started dealing with role models. And eventually, last time we got to individuals and people that, our friends and family, the people that we care about and know relatively well. Now we've built everything around you. We've built an entire universe of symbols. I mean, both a physical universe, everything we talked about was, with the exception of human speech, I suppose, were real things that you could see. Now what we are down to is ourselves. So last symbol is me. And the question that we're going to use to frame this is, why can't I play me? Why can't I play violin? And I'm going to tell you why I can't play violin. I can't play violin because my violin teacher, when I was 8 or 9 years old, told my parents that she didn't think that I had enough talent, that I wasn't going to really become anything with regard to that, and that maybe sports would be, which is just, isn't that insane? But sports would be a better activity for me. The reason I can't play violin is because a violin teacher in 1978 or 9 told me effectively that she didn't think I was good at it. All right, and now, to be fair, this isn't like something that I have this, horrible regret about. But it is interesting. As I was growing up, it became clear to me, that I wasn't cut out for that. It wasn't until my 20s that I became a guitar player. But all through that time, I had the idea of myself that I wasn't musical. I wasn't talented in that way. Most of us have things that, out of all of the possibilities, that we decide that's not for me. I'm not good at math. I can't dance. I'm not athletic. Whatever it is. I mean, most of us have those things. The thing is, we didn't start out with those things. Those are ideas that we have about ourselves that somebody else put there. Whether it was through telling you and your parents, maybe you should try sports, to a math teacher giving you a test that had an F on it. We had it communicated to other people, this is how you should think about yourself. Not that all of them meant to do that, but that was the effect it had. All right, that's what we're talking about. We have three three big points for this video. First one is going to be the definition of the term identity. It's not a super complicated definition, and identity kind of means what you think it is. The second point is going to be how we develop an identity. And that is going to be a slightly more complicated, but not that much, concept called looking glass self. It's a term from the year 1901 when people still talked about looking glasses. And third is the problems, and that's what we're going to do. So let's begin with identity. Identity is our ideas of who we are. Now, really importantly, I don't want it to slide by without spending a little bit of time on this. It's your idea of who you are. What that implies is, just like we have ideas of other people that match reality to a degree, but not necessarily perfectly, I'm saying the exact same thing is true about my ideas about myself, your ideas about yourself, our identity, the way we understand ourselves, when we think about ourselves and describe ourselves. It's not that you're wrong, but it's that probably you at least partially are. Your identity, your idea about who you are, is a model. You are a symbol to yourself. You know yourself better than probably you know anybody else, but that doesn't mean you know yourself perfectly. That is a deep, deep idea, way beyond the scope of I'm taking this class for a grade. I mean, I'm not telling you how to live your life, you can go through this class and your life without introspection at all. But to the extent that most of us, especially as we're going through college, traditional college students, but also non-traditional students who are maybe middle-aged and are coming back to it, not all of us are happy a lot of the time. And a lot of the time it's because we have ideas about ourselves that make us miserable. What I'm saying here is those ideas might not be right. And that is an idea in itself worth spending some time with. All right, so how did we develop an identity? The sociologist Charles Horton Cooley is the person who explained this sociologically. I mean, you can spend a lot of time in psychology dealing with issues of identity, and I encourage you to do that. For us, we're going to do a simplified, not inaccurate, but simplified version of how identity formation happens. And the idea is the looking glass. Sorry, the looking glass self. Basically, there are two steps to it. The first step is that we interpret other people's behavior toward us. Well, that's it. Their behavior might be physical, their behavior might be verbal. But we interpret their behavior toward us as comments on who we are. So my parents get angry at me about something. I interpret that behavior as not just a comment about what I've done, unless they're very specific about that, but a comment about who I am. My violin teacher says, "You're not that good at that." I interpret that as a comment about who I am. But you get it. Your math teacher hands you back a test with an F on it, and you interpret that as a comment about who you are. The second step is that we attach that comment, our interpretation of that, as we attach that as the meaning to the symbol me. So I take that person, what that person said about violin, and I attach that to me. Okay, so I am a person who isn't all that musically talented. I take that F. I am a person who's not that good at math. I take some middle schooler making fun of me dancing at a dance and attach that to me. Now, here's the thing about this. We do so much of this in our teenage years, and we are hypersensitive to other people's evaluations of us. So what we are doing is creating an identity, an idea of who we are at our most vulnerable time, and frankly around people who are idiots or jerks a lot of the time. Okay, but I'll leave that for just a moment. Identity, our idea of who we are. Looking glass self is the process by which we look at it. Oh, and the looking glass part of it. Looking glass is an old-fashioned term for mirror. So in other words, what we do is we act in certain ways. We see reactions from other people. They are mirrors to us. And we see how we look from their perspective. The problem, as I just said, is a lot of them are idiots. But we're not thinking that through a lot of the time. We're just adding to our identity. The whole process is taking place unconsciously. Okay, so we've got a definition of identity. We've got how it forms, the looking glass self. The third are the problems, and I've already foreshadowed where that is. If you had it to do over again and could choose the people who were going to be your mirrors, you probably wouldn't have chosen the people you went to middle school with. Hopefully you would have chosen your parents, but maybe you would have chosen versions of your parents that were more patient or more gentle or more encouraging of you expressing yourself in certain ways. I'm not telling you should go fight your parents right now. I'm saying, like, from the moment that you're in right now, you've got to be aware that this identity that you have was formed by people who may have been doing the best they could have, but maybe weren't the ideal people at that moment for your identity formation. That's it. That's the big problem with this, is we form our identities based on other people, and we're not aware that we're doing it. We're not aware of the stakes that are involved. And B, we didn't get to pick those people. Imagine a world in which you got to pick only the most gentle, encouraging, not like naive, but kind people to help you form your identity. They were going to give you real feedback, but make sure that you were able to integrate it in a helpful way into your identity. Think of how you would think of yourself differently. It's worth spending some time. With some of the stuff I say, I tell you, think about it for a while, but don't get hooked up on it for a really long time. With this, I'd say maybe a little bit longer, because if you think about the fact that who you think you are depended on these people, and these people may have been idiots, like it could have been different. It was only the happenstance of where you got raised that determined the people that you got to be around. If you had been around different people, you would probably have at least a slightly different, and for some of us, a radically different idea of who we are. All right, the self-help part ends right after this next sentence. There's nothing more fake about you going back and doing this for yourself. Saying, you know what, I'm going to be those significant others that were the mirrors to me. I'm going to go back and say, the hell with what they said. I'm going to create an identity that I want to have. People said I'm not musical. Well, I'm going to be musical now. If you would have had people who would have encouraged you, if you would have had better math teachers, and between you and me, math teachers in America on the whole, no offense to you math teachers, are not trained at a super high level. It's very likely that you are better at math than your math teacher was. On average, math teachers don't have majors in math. They don't even have minors in math. So it's not like the people who were the arbiters of your identity with regard to math were math experts. They absolutely were not. Just as, probably the musical teachers you had weren't necessarily experts. The coaches you had, God knows the coaches we have are oftentimes awful. All of the ideas that you have, I'm not saying you're wrong about yourself. I'm saying it could have been different. And it might be worth it to you in terms of your happiness to take the time to make it different. All right, that's all. Self-help's over. Symbols are over. We will come back next time because I'm still in Albuquerque and I'm trying to get this done. Probably with a quick summary of the symbolic universe before we move on to our second section, which is going to take place down here. I always write it down here. I just needed the room for identity and looking glass self. Our second component of the machine. So I'll see you next time with the summary of the symbolic universe.